The Kite. Berry the snail was still asleep when Dolly the ladybird knocked on his window. "Good morning, Berry. Let's make a kite." Dolly drew a kite and Berry cut it out. They decorated it with colourful ribbons and then they tied it to a long piece of string. "Let's see if it flies," Dolly said. They took each other's hand and set off to fly their kite. But no matter how hard the two of them tried, the kite just wouldn't fly. "I'll climb up this tree and try it from there. Maybe then it'll fly," Dolly explained. But the kite just fell to the ground again. All of a sudden, the wind blew up and carried the kite away and took Dolly with it. "Berry! Help!" Berry climbed up the tree and grabbed Dolly's feet, but he couldn't pull her back, so now the two of them were flying. Balthazar the bee flew by. He caught hold of Berry's feet, but he couldn't pull the kite back either, so now the three of them were flying. Eddie the potato beetle was sitting on top of a pine tree. He caught Balthazar's feet, so now the four of them were flying. "Leapy, help!" Balthazar cried to the grasshopper, who was just hopping by. Leapy caught Eddie's feet, so now the five of them were flying. The wind got stronger and stronger. Flutter the butterfly flew by. She caught Leapy's feet, so now the six of them were flying. Stanley the stag beetle and Zephyr the dragonfly looked at their friends in despair. "Oh dear, the wind's blowing us right into the forest." The kite got tangled in the top of a tall tree and they landed in the treetops. The wind died down and the sun came out. Berry gave the ladybird a worried look. "Dolly, I can't fly. How am I going to get down from here?" "Don't worry, Berry. I'm sure we'll think of something."
"I know what to do. Jump into this blanket, Berry. Don't be afraid. You won't hurt yourself."
Berry jumped down into the blanket and bounced back up in the air. "Look at me. This is fun." "We want to try," the others shouted. The little friends jumped up and down on the blanket until it got dark. Long after they were all in bed asleep, the wind blew up again and carried the kite far, far away. Berry and Dolly say, "What will we learn today?" The Water Snail. Berry, Dolly, Flutter and Balthazar were sitting around in the meadow. "I wish I had a cousin too, a distant snail relative," Berry sighed. But you've got a sort of cousin, Berry. The water snail is a kind of snail, Flutter the butterfly said. Really? Berry jumped to his feet with a grin. Where does this water snail live?
Nowhere. I don't think there's such a thing as a water snail.
Oh, yes, there is. I know where he lives. He's got a little house deep down in the round pond on the other side of the forest.
You're talking nonsense,
the bee said. Why don't we go down to the round pond to see for ourselves? Come with me. I'll take you, Hedgehog Harry told his friends. We can be there before it gets dark. Hooray! Berry whooped. I'll bring the air tank so we can swim down to the bottom of the pond. Berry, Dolly, Flutter and Balthazar hopped into the hedgehog cart and set out for the round pond. It was late in the evening by the time they finally caught sight of the pond.
The cart's running away!
The little bee shouted, but it was already too late. The hedgehog cart rolled right into the water. It's too late to do anything today. Let's go to bed, and tomorrow you can all swim down to the bottom of the pond. I'm sure you'll find the cart, Harry comforted them. Berry woke up bright and early the next morning. Look, the water lily has opened its petals and there's someone standing on its leaf and he's waving at us. Who are you? Hello, everybody. My name's Sam Snail and I live deep down at the bottom of the round pond. See, Balthazar, water snails do exist after all. I've got my own proper cousin now. Sam Snail didn't understand why Berry was so happy to see him. But then Dolly told him why they had come. I'm so happy to meet you, Cousin Berry, the water snail said. Would you help us find our cart that rolled into the water, Sam? Flutter asked. I'd be delighted. Follow me, the water snail said. So the four friends slipped into their swimming costumes and swam all the way down to the bottom of the pond. This is where I live, Sam Snail announced with pride. They heard a frightening hissing sound that scared Berry, Dolly, Flutter and Balthazar, who hid behind the house. Don't be scared. It's my friend the Water Snake. Water Snake, have you seen a cart at the bottom of the pond by any chance? Hang on to me and I'll take you there. There it is, the Water Snake hissed. Berry, Dolly, Balthazar and Flutter were happy they'd found it. You did it, said Harry. He was so happy to see his little friends again. Let's go for a trip on the pond, Sam Snail suggested. They all sat on the lily pad and Sam Snail started rowing. It's time we were going, Dolly said when it began to get dark. Oh, let's stay a little longer, Berry pleaded. We'll come again another day, Flutter reassured the little snail. Harry Hedgehog was already waiting for them. Berry, Dolly, Flutter and Balthazar all said goodbye to Sam Snail and headed for home. The next day, Berry and Dolly both painted colourful pictures of their distant cousins. Berry and Dolly say, what will we learn today? The hot air balloon. One summer afternoon, a storm blew up in the forest. Dolly the ladybird and Berry the snail sat watching it from the spotty house. The wild wind twisted the trees and blew the roofs off houses. The rain came down in buckets. When the rain and wind finally stopped, the two friends took a look around the forest. Look, Dolly, the wind blew this tree over, Berry said. and the rain washed away my flowers," Dolly sighed. Leapy the grasshopper came rushing in.
Dolly, Berry, come quickly. Someone's lying in the meadow.
The friends found an oil beetle lying in the meadow. "Oh, what happened to you? What's your name? Who are you?" "I'm Adet the oil beetle. I live up in the mountains, but the wind blew me down here and I hit my head really hard. My wings are weak and I can't fly. I don't know how I'm going to get home," the oil beetle sniffled. They lifted Adet up and carried her into Leapy's house. "Don't worry," Dolly said eventually. "We'll help you get home." That afternoon, Balthazar the bee, Flutter the butterfly and Stanley the stag beetle all came to see Adet. They tried to think of ways to help her get home.
The best thing would be a hot air balloon,
Stanley said. "But what could we use to make a balloon?" Berry asked. "We could use blankets, pillows and sheets," Flutter suggested.
and curtains and towels too,"
Stanley added. They got to work immediately. They stitched all the blankets, curtains, sheets and towels together. It took a while to get everything finished, but Adet helped as much as she could. Every day she was feeling stronger, and even her head had stopped hurting.
"It's ready,"
said Stanley. "Thank you," the oil beetle replied happily. "Hooray! We're flying!" Berry exclaimed. "Wow, it's beautiful! We can see the whole forest from here!" Dolly laughed. It started to get dark. When they eventually arrived, Adet cried out, "Hooray! I'm home! Thank you. Please stay the night and watch the shooting stars with me." "We'd love to," the little friends said. Adet quickly made them something to eat and gave them delicious cakes and tea. After dinner, they all sat down in front of Adet's house and waited for shooting stars to appear in the night sky. "Hooray! I saw a shooting star!" Berry exclaimed excitedly. "Me too," Dolly said.
"And me,"
added Stanley. They went into Adet's house when it got colder and sat and watched the stars through the window. They all made a wish and fell fast asleep. As she slowly drifted to sleep, Adet wished that someday she would meet her new friends again. Berry and Dolly say, what will we learn today? Dumplings. One autumn day, Dolly the ladybird cooked plum dumplings and invited her friends to lunch. Berry came along, and so did Balthazar, Stanley and Flutter. The little ladybird girl put 3 dumplings on each plate. Berry, Dolly and Flutter were soon full.
Plum dumplings. I love them. I could eat 5,
said Balthazar the bee.
5 is nothing. I could eat 7.
7? I could eat 8.
I could eat 10, the little stag beetle announced.
Then let's have a competition,
Balthazar concluded.
Let's see who can eat the most dumplings.
Dolly didn't like the sound of this, and she tried to talk them out of it, but the boys were determined. It'll all end in tears, she warned, but Balthazar and Stanley wouldn't listen.
We've already eaten 3 dumplings. Now let's eat the 4th,
Stanley suggested, and he plopped another dumpling onto each plate. When they had finished, they put another on their plates and ate a 5th dumpling each. After the 5th, they ate a 6th. After the 6th, they ate a 7th. After the 7th, they ate an 8th. And then a 9th dumpling.
And now for the 10th. Can you keep going?
Balthazar asked.
I could eat twice as many,
Stanley said with a shrug. The 2 friends ate so many dumplings that their tummies started to hurt more and more. I'll run and get Dr. Owl, shouted Flutter the butterfly. Dr. Owl examined them both and gave them a good telling off.
What have you 2 been doing? I'm not surprised that you've got stomachache.
They ate 15 each,
Berry said as he counted the plum stones on the plates.
And so it was a draw after all. It was a very silly thing to do. You'll only be allowed to eat boiled potatoes for 3 days. But the chimney cake man's coming to the forest tomorrow,
Stanley complained.
I'm very sorry, but there's going to be no chimney cake for you.
Come and see me in 3 days and I'll take a look at your tummies again, Dr. Owl said with a scowl, and he flew away home. The very next day, the firebug arrived in the meadow with his delicious chimney cakes. All the forest friends flocked to the stall to sample his tasty wares. I'd like a cinnamon one, Dolly said.
and I'd like a coconut one, Berry added.
I only want sugar on mine, Flutter shouted. But there were also cakes with walnuts, poppy seeds and chocolate on them. Balthazar and Stanley looked sadly on, but they did as Dr. Owl had told them. On the third day, the little bee and his stag beetle friend went to see Dr. Owl.
Now let's take a look at you,
said the elderly owl, as he examined them both thoroughly.
You appear to be better. I can see that you did as you were told.
We did, Stanley said with a sob, but I so wanted to eat a chimney cake. Stanley and Balthazar said goodbye to Dr. Owl and were walking home when the old bird shouted after them.
Wait 1 second. I've got something for you here. I saved 2 chimney cakes for you.
You went to the meadow, Dr. Owl?
Of course. I bought chimney cakes for my chicks and I put 2 away for you. You did exactly as I said, and so I thought you deserved a treat. Thank you,
the 2 friends said with a smile, and they both threw their arms around Dr. Owl. Berry and Dolly say, what will we learn today?
Kindergarten. One autumn morning, Dolly knocked excitedly on Berry's door. Come quickly, Berry, or we'll be late. Berry got ready and the 2 friends held hands and walked to the nursery together. Lots of little children were gathered in the playground. They were all so happy to see each other. There was Balthazar the bee, Flutter the butterfly, Stanley the stag beetle, Eddie the potato beetle, Zephyr the dragonfly, Alfonso the cricket, Leapy the grasshopper, and Bubble the baby beetle. Mrs. Bumblebee patiently guided everybody into their classrooms. The little, middle and top children went into different rooms. Bubble was in the little group. He waved to Berry and Dolly from the doorway. The day started with exercises. After breakfast, the children made beautiful pictures using the leaves they collected in the woods. When everybody had finished, Mrs. Bumblebee gathered the children in a circle. She taught them lots of songs and games. The children all danced around. Then it was playtime. Mrs. Bumblebee sat in a rocking chair and watched the children. Berry and the boys ran straight over to the car box and started playing cars. They built ramps and tunnels. "Can I join in, boys?" Dolly asked. She was holding a broken red car. "Oh no, Dolly, you can't play cars with that old thing," Berry told her. "And anyway, cars are for boys, not girls." That made Dolly cry. "The boys don't want to play with me," she told Flutter. Flutter, Leapy and Zephyr quickly cheered her up. "Come and play with us. We're playing with dolls." The girls dressed their dolls in pretty dresses, fed them and rocked them to sleep. Dolly liked this game a lot. Then Berry got into an argument with Morris the Maybug. "You keep knocking my car over. It's not fair. You're a cheat." "That's not true. You're a cheat," replied Morris. "That's it. I'm not playing with you anymore," Berry said sulkily and left the boys. "Can I join in your game?" Berry asked his friend Dolly. "You can't play with us. It's a girls' game," Dolly sulked. "But I brought this doll with me. It's got curly hair. I want to play with you." "All right. Come and play with us. But now you have to let me play cars with you."
"Children, time to wash your hands," Mrs. Bumblebee shouted. "Then go and sit down at the tables." Mrs. Earwig, the dinner lady, dished up their dinner. When everybody had finished eating, Berry and Dolly collected up all the plates and glasses. Then the children had a little lie down while Mrs. Bumblebee read them a story. They all listened in silence, and a few of them fell fast asleep. When they got up, they all had a snack and went out into the playground. It was enormous and filled with all kinds of slides, climbing frames and swings, with a big wooden train in the middle. Berry and Morris quickly made friends again and played on the swings together. Dolly helped Bubble up the slide and caught him at the bottom. Bubble liked that a lot. The rest of the day flew by, and soon the children were waving goodbye to each other. They couldn't wait for tomorrow to come.